Hello everyone and welcome to this XPath series for the testers. In this particular tutorial, we will learn about the text-based XPath. So let's begin. When we are working with the XPath, one of the most common ways to locate the elements is by using the text inside the element. Now, this is extremely useful when the attributes like ID, class are dynamic in nature or they are missing. Okay, so basically the first way to locate the element is using the text function. So basically text function, and using this function we can create a XPath which will locate the element. Now this text function matches the elements based on their exact text content. So basically what it will do is that it will matches elements based on their exact text content. Okay, then the second way here is that using the contains with the text function. So basically we will be using contains with the text function. We already discussed about the text. We will see those practically shortly, but right now let's understand the concept. So we can use contains, and contains needs to be used with text function. Again, contains is a function over here. So basically we'll be using contains with the text. Okay, now the question is that when we should be using this contains, right? The question is always that when we should use this content. Okay, contains. So this is basically needs to be used when the text is a part of a longer string. So when text is part of longer string. So what it means is that, so basically you have a text like, let me write, this is example text. Okay, now this is a whole complete string. So this string contains this is example and text. So what I can do is that using contains, I will say that okay, the element should contain example. So now example is a part of this whole string. So when you have a long string, for example, this particular part, and this part is dynamic in nature, and this is constant. So in that kind of a scenarios, you can use the contains function. Okay, and finally, we have a method or the function called normalize text. Normalize text or normalize the space. So again, this needs to be used with text function. And here, let me give you example. For example, you have text like this way: space, 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 text, then again a space, 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 sample. Now you see that there's unnecessary spaces over here, this one and this one. So normalize space will basically normalize the extra spaces, line breaks, or the tabs. So it will remove any leading or trailing spaces and reduces the multiple spaces to a single line. Okay, and also what you can do is that you can go with the multiple text conditions. Okay, so multiple text conditions, multiple text conditions. And when you talk about multiple conditions, so you will be combining with or and and. So basically using the logical operators, we will be combining the multiple conditions. We will say, okay, find the element. If it's find the element, let's take example, find an element where text is equals to test, or text is equals to example. So again, you can utilize the multiple conditions and identify that particular element. Okay, and when we are using these again, so basically you know, the point here is that we need to identify the elements uniquely, right? So this is the purpose. Okay, so that's why we are learning all these concepts. Okay, let's go to the browser over here, and here let's see some things practically now. Now, for example, you see that this first name, right? So if I inspect this one, and you see that this is a text, right? So this is a label tag, and inside that we have this particular text. So now, for example, there is no other thing available, right? No ID available, no name is available, no class is available, right? So how I can identify this element? So basically, uh, just like we can use the text function, we can use the contains and so on. So in order to write the XPath for this one, again, this is a relative XPath with double forward slash. Okay, name of the tag. So tag is label over here, right? And inside that, we need to use this text function, and we'll say text is equals to, okay, and we need to provide the exact text. Okay, so exact text is this one. Copy this one and provide this one here with the static and close the bracket. Now you see that it uniquely identified this label using the text function. And for example, if you want to locate this personal information from here, so now here this personal information, if I right click and inspect on this one, so this is H2 heading, right? So it's not label, it's H2. So H2, again text, so copy this text and paste this text over here. You see that it uniquely identified this particular element. Now again, this is a relative XPath, and here we are using a text function which is used to find the element using the exact text. Okay, now we have this email address over here, right? And we can use the contains. So for example, this address part is dynamic in nature and it keeps changing, but still you can locate this element by the text which contains this part only, right? So what I'll do is that simply this is, let me locate this complete one, and here again this is a label. Okay, so we need to provide here label, and now we need to use contains with the text. So let me remove this complete part from here, and we need to say okay contains. Now what it should contains, basically we'll be using a text function with this one. Okay, and it should contain, now we need to provide comma, and we need to provide a part of that particular string. Okay, and now close this small bracket and close this large bracket. So you see that it identified this email address just with the email part of the text, and we can easily locate this element using the contain and text. Okay, now we can take example of the normalized space. Again, normalized space needs to be used in a very same way, and here we go and inspect this one. So again, this is a label, and instead of this contains part, basically now we need to use the normalize space. So normalize, NORM, normalize dash space. Okay, now inside that we need to provide, okay, which kind of a text it needs to normalize. So normalize space, small bracket. Okay, then again text, right? And now we need to close with a small bracket and equals to, now we say the phone number. Okay, phone number, and at the end we need to close with the large bracket. So you see that we have identified this phone number using this normalized space. Assume that there is some trailing spaces or leading spaces, but it will lose that. It will normalize those spaces. So normalized spaces will basically normalize spaces, and where it will be normalizing spaces basically inside the text. So that's how you can use the normalize with the text, contain with the text, and finally we need to see practically for the multiple conditions as well. Okay. Now you want to identify this particular radio option, and if I go here, inspect this one. So this is the type of radio. Though I can, write XPath directly for this one, but for this example, what I'll do is that I will use a multiple condition over here. So assume that you don't have a ID name, these things. So you can utilize the conditions. Okay. So this is basically input. So let's write this one again, double forward slash. This is input, right? And at the attribute is type. Okay. And we need basically this is a radio, right? So basically we'll say radio. Now using unlogical conditions, either we will be using or maybe we can use the and. So here I'm using the and. Again, it depends on the element, right? And I will say following dash sibling, following sibling, double colon again. Now I am referring it with the parent or siblings. So siblings means that if I hover this one again, so you will see that, let me show you. If I go here, so you see that this is the radio option, and sibling is that which is on the same level. So these both are siblings, right? And here this one is basically of this particular label for male. The male, this one is basically a following sibling, is following this one, right? So that's why it's a following sibling. So using this following sibling, I'll say go and find the radio option where the following sibling is basically having a text equals to male, because this is our text male, right? So following sibling, and again it's a label, and we were using our text function, text equals to male, and we need to close the brackets. So you see that we have successfully located this element using condition and the text functions, right? So this might be looks complicated. Let me explain you again. So what I did is that I tried to find or locate this element. So I was writing an XPath, and here what I did is that I'll say, okay, locate a radio option. So there are 4. So I would say, okay, locate a radio option where the sibling is having a text male, because other siblings have different female, other, or prefer not to say. These are the siblings for the other radio options. So if you have this kind of a scenario, you can locate the element in this way. So let me summarize the today's session. So basically, we learn about the text-based XPath, where we learn about using the text function. So basically, we learn about the text function, and it matches the elements based on their exact text content. Then we learn about the contains, and contains needs to be used with the text function. So where we need to know that, okay, the part of the string is always constant and the rest can be dynamic in nature. So we can take the constant part and we can utilize, okay, this particular string has this part. So based on this, we can use the contains with the text and identify that element uniquely. And then we learn about normalize space. So it will basically normalize the space, and we are saying that, okay, normalize space when we are talking about the text. So normalize-space means that we are saying that remove the spaces, training spaces, these kind of stuff. And then at the end, we learn about the multiple conditions. So we said that, okay, when we have no ID, no class, nothing is available. So, but we know that in the sibling, we have a label, and where we saw that it contains a text as a mail. So using that one, we actually come up with the XPath, right? So again, let me repeat the last one. So we identify this radio option using its sibling. Sibling means which is on the same level. So these both are sibling. Now this label for the mail is basically following this one, right? After this one. So that's why it's a following sibling. And following sibling is basically label, and the text for this one is mail. So using this reference, basically sibling reference, we identified this radio options, right? So in our upcoming tutorials, we will learn more concepts so that you can master, the XPath. So because there are so many scenarios where you need to write the custom XPath for your automation. Okay.